Please welcome Lynette Mullen. Hi.
Thank you very much, Rebecca.
I think it's important that people realize that we have an effect, wittingly
Absolutely.
or unwittingly, every day. Every
Yeah.
time we come in contact with anyone, we do have an effect.
Absolutely.
And we should do it wittingly, consciously, and deliberately. There's a program in the inner city that's very small right now, but it's called an Adopt a Grandma.
Mm.
But actually, what the grandmas do in their neighborhood, they find single moms or moms that are working, and they go over and rock the baby and adopt the baby for so many hours.
Yeah.
And this helps them because they're isolated seniors, and this helps the family and it helps the children. Expanding that out a little further, in one homeless shelter, there was a woman there that talked to the little boys all the time. And one of those little boys, the way I learned about her, is now a very successful businessman, came from a crime-ridden neighborhood, a terrible background, and she turned his whole life around. So if we can start believing in ourselves as human beings and know that we can touch a life, even if it's for a moment, touch a life with kindness and understanding, and if we could expand that out through all of our organizations, our churches, our community, there are community organizations that just start circling the neighbors, so to speak. Where are your children today? Do you have to work? I'll watch out for your son, or I'll watch out for Mrs. So-and-so because she's 90 years young. Maybe we should check on her once in a while. Just being human and reaching out to touch the people around us and in our lives can save those lives. And we have far too little of it. More and more people are isolated, and it isn't getting any better.
Right. Well, I think that maybe sometimes people have a misconception that if you're reaching out, if you see somebody and you talk to them, or you reach out to somebody, that requires energy, and maybe more energy than you've got at the end of the day, because you've worked all day and you're going home to kids and dinner and homework and all of that, and so it feels like you just don't have it, which makes a lot of sense. But I think what people will find is if they do reach out, if they talk to the person behind them in the line at the grocery store, or make a joke, or that it actually feeds you instead of taking from you. And maybe I think you need to experience that in order to truly understand it, but it really does. I mean, when you start interacting with people and supporting people, it feeds you. But the only way to really understand that is to try it.
Then I must tell you a story somebody told me when that subject came up. There was a guy that was going to commit suicide. He was walking along the bridge in the dark, and he was making his peace with God and saying, this is over, I cannot deal with this life. And then before he jumped, he said to God, God, if there's any reason that I should not do this, tell me now, show me now. And a car came, somehow angled around the corner a little, and he got caught right in the headlights. And the woman that was driving the car slowed down real slow and turned the headlights, and as she did, she smiled at him, the most beautiful smile. And he started to cry, and he didn't jump. How much energy did that take her? Just a moment of compassion. Maybe because she caught him in the headlights and she wasn't driving absolutely straight. But this, you're a person, I respect you, I care, came across in the smile. He didn't jump. We can change a life of somebody that's feeling desperate and not even know it, simply by being real and human and compassionate, even for a moment. And that's the point. A person shouldn't give more than they can give, because then they become burned out, exhausted, and don't want anything to do with anybody, and that makes it worse. But you can give a sweet smile, a handshake, a kindness in passing, and it doesn't cost a dime.
No. And it perpetuates it's interesting here in the community, and I'm appreciating this more and more. And actually, my daughter traveled out of the country for a bit and came back, and she agreed, this is an incredible place to live.
I
really
Humboldt
think
County.
it's, and it's beautiful, and I'm struck by the beauty all the time, just the incredible physical beauty of it. But I know somebody that was very frustrated by the fact that, like, when you're driving, people slow down and let you merge. like to the point of kind of, you know, it's maybe a little bit of overkill because everybody's polite. People slow down to let you merge. I mean, and it's so weird, but like you go to some of the other communities, I won't mention, and nobody lets you merge. No, I mean, it's so telling, I think, of the community. And it's, if you walk into a grocery store, you can hear people greeting each other and apologizing to each other if they get in each other's way. And it's incredibly polite and considerate, and it's kind of the culture here. And I've talked to people who have talked about what a terrible community this is, and fortunately, I think they've left. Because if you can't appreciate it, if you can't open yourself up to it, then you're not going to see it, and whatever. But if you open yourself up to it, and just, like I said, listen in line at the grocery store. You know, pay attention to the way people talk to each other in a restaurant. It's an incredible place, but you need to open yourself up to that.
You need to become part of it. And be
Absolutely,
unafraid to
absolutely,
become part of it.
yes. But then that gives you an opportunity then to reach some of the people that maybe are isolated,
Exactly.
that are not in touch with that part of the community. And if you can smile at somebody and maybe they'll smile back, and that's a first connection, and then maybe, you know, if that person's a victim, maybe the next time they'll smile and say hello. And it can open those doors, which ultimately help to make this a healthier community for everybody.
I think people that don't feel a part of it are afraid to become part of life wherever they're at.
May very well be true.
If we're afraid to become a part of it, and see, we really are a part of it, whether we're afraid or not.
Right.
So why don't we deliberately, willfully make that little part of it that we touch a little better because we were there,
Absolutely.
no matter how tiny that part is.
Or just appreciate, I mean, and part of it is, I think sometimes people get concerned, and certainly I do, and I think I should be contributing more to the world. I should, you know, be thinking about what to do to make this world a better place. But part of it, I think, is not so much doing as just opening up. Because I think if we open up, then we're more receptive to the good things, more receptive to opportunities, and so it takes some of the pressure off. You know, if we're not thinking we have to do all the time, but just kind of being and not being afraid, and kind of opening up the walls that allows other people to do it too. I don't know if that makes sense.
You know,
or not.
here's a simple little recipe without exhaustion. If we could get up in the morning and say, today, this day, is going to be a better day just because I happen to be in it. And with that promise to yourself, you smile at your neighbor.
Oh, I like that.
You hug your
Okay.
child.
Right.
You pet your dog.
Absolutely.
And you go through this day taking the natural opportunities that the day brings to you and making them
Yes.
just a little bit better because you were in it. If we lived like that, we could change the world.
I like
Our
that
world.
very much.
Our personal world.
Yeah.
And a lot of lives around us.
Wow.
Just this day.
What can you do? What can we do? I like that a lot.
You know, we're each cells in the body of humanity, and no single cell is capable of changing the entire body unless, of course, we have cancer in a destructive way and it expands. But even that single cell didn't do it by a single cell. We have to expand consciously what we are, and if it's a positive thing, it's power.
Absolutely. Well, conversely, if you think of a grumpy person,
Right.
and you think that, you know, and we've all run into people and allowed ourselves, and I do think we allow ourselves to be affected by that grouch.
Right.
You know, they're a sour person, they're negative, and it's even, we've allowed ourselves to be affected by that in a negative way, I think, at one point or another.
Right.
And so if you can remember that and think about the influence that person had, you can have that same amount, if not more influence, doing what you said. You know, deciding to be positive instead of a grouch. You know, passing that on, even if it is just a smile. Think of the sort of impact you could have. I think that's great.
Even when you come to the grumpiness, I knew an old man that was getting sicker and sicker, and he was in pain, and he got grumpier and grumpier and grouchier, and none of the nurses or anything wanted to work with him. He was just too hungry. But I'd go see him, and when I'd leave, I'd say, now listen, real loud so he could hear it. If he quits complaining, check his pulse. Make sure he's got a heartbeat if he quits complaining. And he started to laugh. But he started to realize what he was doing.
Right.
Because I refused to let him get at me. And I
Right.
was going to ease it up for the nurses that had to work there.
Right.
And they all started, oh, all right. This is not him speaking. This is his fear. This is his pain.
Absolutely.
And it's not personal, and I refuse to accept it as personal. So, hey, are you complaining in there?
Right. I think that's great. I like what you said. I like the idea that each of us can get up in the morning and decide to be a positive contribution. And it doesn't create a burden for us.
No.
It's not an extra responsibility. It's just choosing to smile at the person we see in the car next to us when we're stopped at a stoplight.
Exactly.
Or letting someone merge even if somebody else is going to complain about it later because it slows everything down. We can all do something, some little tiny something that makes the world a better place today, and I think that's incredibly amazing. I love that.
Keeping it in perspective, like you say, it's so exhausting to think about changing the world. If you keep it in perspective, you realize if there's a flood and you have a canoe and you go out and pick up everybody that needs a ride, the canoe will sink and you will all drown. And you
Well,
didn't.
it's not a happy thought, but okay.
This is the same idea of overloading
Absolutely.
with exhaustion.
Yeah.
It's the same principle involved.
Right.
Do what you can do. Love each day. Enjoy each day and pass the joy around.
Absolutely.
And forget about what you can't do. You can only accept what you can accept if
Right.
you're going to handle it right.
And you'll never understand the impact, nor do you need to. I mean, I'm
Right.
thinking about your story of the man on the bridge and the
Right.
woman that smiled. That woman will never know the impact she had on that man's life.
Right.
Ah, yeah. So
Yeah.
everything we do, you
Right.
never know.
It was really nice, and I appreciate you coming in.
yeah.
I think you helped a lot of people understand what's going on, and I'm grateful for that. They're grateful for that, I'm sure, because the whole objective is share the wisdom, share the love, share the knowledge and the understanding the best we can and help each other. And I want to thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, thank you so much.